Hi everyone, thanks for joining me back on my channel. My name's Tamara and we're here today to review another Throne of Glass book, and that book being the second one, which is Crown of Midnight. Now for full transparency, I did not know there was multiple reading orders for this book series, and I recently just figured that out. So the next book up will be Assassin's Blade. I opted to do what seems to be like the emotional reading journey rather than by publication date. So just a heads up, that's what's upcoming, okay? We're gonna do Assassin's Blade next. But in terms of this book, this is a spoiler review. So if you haven't read it, step out, come back. If you don't care, then chime in and we're gonna talk about it. I flew through this book like I knew I would, because when I start books like this, I just fly. We just fly, we're too into it. But I gave this book a 4 to 5. And the reason I gave it a 4 to 5 is incredibly similar to the first book in the way that I feel like I'm leaving room for it to be perfection. And as much as it's a great book and I enjoyed every bit of it, there's something missing for me and I can't put my finger on what it is yet. And I know it's going to happen. This is more of a slow burn as to this being like our earlier books, but I'm really looking forward to giving the upcoming ones a 5 out of 5 because I have a feeling we're approaching that. But 4 to 5 for this one. Very similar to the first book, that this prioritizes character building and world development, which are two great things to me, especially being in the early stages of this series. There is some, I'm going to call it like a green bell pepper level spice, which is minimal to nothing. But our main lead does kind of lose her virginity in this and has an intimate scene. But because it's not really described in detail, so they kind of shy over it, and then she dabbles with like wanting more intimacy, but again they shy over it. And I don't know if that's something that's because of like how young the author was when she wrote these books, or just a testament to how our female lead bears a lot of innocence in this way too. So I'm looking forward to the growth in that side of intimacy, which I'm assuming will happen later in the series. But for the purpose of this book, I enjoyed what they gave us in that regard too. It was super sweet, it was super sentimental, and if we don't know who we're talking about her and the captain of the guard guy. So I'm not going to pronounce his name because I think his name is stupid. I don't know how to pronounce it. And someone told me when they read like it on Audible that it's actually Kale, which blows my mind because that's the last way I would pronounce his name because it's how it's spelt. So I always called him like Chow Ko whatever, but not Kale. So regardless, he will always be the king guard to me because I just feel like he doesn't deserve me struggling to pronounce his name anymore. Like I'm over it. But yeah, so they kind of grew as a slow burn relationship out of respect and became a little bit more romantic. And then unfortunately, that kind of dwindled towards the end of the book. But it's okay. We're okay with this because I feel like it's opening a lot of other doors. And I don't know, I'm supposedly okay with it. I think it's just because I always viewed them as more of like a respect, friendship base first. And as much as they slow burn into the romance, it was just wholesome, but I wouldn't consider it you're the love of my life kind of relationship. And maybe that's because the lack of spice, I don't quite know, but it was cute for what it was. Dorian have a really great friendship that's brewing as he's trying to kind of separate himself romantically from wanting her as well. But because now we discover in this book that he has magic, and we get a lot more about her magical background too, and the whole Fae dynamic, which I mentioned in the first book review, that whole politics side as to why Faes have disappeared, how magic disappeared 10 years ago, what's the king up to, why did he all of a sudden come to power so quickly, all of these mysteries took centerfold in this book actually, which kept me incredibly captivated. Not that we know everything, but we got bits and pieces of a lot in this book, which was fascinating to me because it not only expands the world, but we got introduced to some side people in this book too that kind of fed into that politic mystery, like some of like the rebels and whatnot. And it was really interesting. And we also got a POV from the king at one point in this, like a very brief one, which alludes to him questioning like, why was the portal open? And we assume he maybe has a key that gave him his power to, you know, take over kingdom after kingdom. So a lot of good speculation and a lot of mystery solved in this, but there's still so much to be uncovered, which is why I'm so captivated, I feel like, in this book series. The world was designed to be slow, like it feeds it to you slow, but still so interesting because it's such a big world. And our female lead also with her character, like not just the innocence, but I don't know. She like fully embraces who she is by almost the end of this book, which is great to see. Like we already knew she was a badass. We already knew she was comedic, witty, brave, you know, has a good head on her shoulders. And I just feel like in this one, she like stopped hiding behind her secrets and started letting them out and just embrace what it is that she's meant to do from what we think she's meant to do. So it was satisfying to actually read these parts about this character. So I was very interested. Same thing with Dorian coming into his magic and what that could mean for him as the heir to the throne and like a ruler, and in him with cahoots with our main lead too, and how maybe they can bring the idea of peace, which seems to be a pipe dream, back to actual reality. Like there seems to be a lot of light at the end of the tunnel based off of everything that everyone's endured with all these kingdoms and the separation. So I'm fascinated by the politics, the mystery, and then the continuous growth on both fronts with world and character development. Now, I did mention at the end of the first book, I was curious about how our female lead's going to handle being the king's champion, because she has a moral compass and he supposedly does not. And I am pleasantly surprised, and it checks out how she handles it. She essentially dupes the king the entire time. Anyone he says to kill, she frames the death and lets them live. For whatever reason, they're not worth actually killing. The king is just, you know, putting out threats that are meaningless as to why he wants these people dead. So she has been duping him throughout the entire book, which was incredibly entertaining to read, how she keeps up this facade. Eventually, everyone we like is in the know as to what she's up to, including her female friend in this, which I was really happy. I feel like I wanted everyone to know, and they kind of sporadically start to know throughout the course of the book, if not all at the same time, which was kind of nice too to read. Keeps you on your toes. The friend that our female lead has ends up passing in this book, meaning she died in a very gruesome, unfortunate way, but it is kind of like the motivation our female lead needed to start embracing who she really is and what the impact she could have. And the whole sequence that led into that murder, unfortunately, I thought was the most epic part of the whole book. I was so into it. I was visualizing, if they ever made it into a movie or a TV show, how cool it would be, because they described that whole sequence really well. In which case, they captured the Kingsguard, and at the time they just fooled around and had intimacy, so like she was very in her feelings about her attachment to him, and she was so passionate about getting him back, and the captors pretty much like they downplayed what she was capable of, which was like the biggest surprise when she came and just like killed everybody so quickly, murked everybody. And it was so satisfying to read all the different tactics and everything. She was just such a badass. And then she zoomed back to the castle when she realized she was being duped herself to save her friend, but she was too late. But just like the urgency there and how fast she got there, it was just written so well that if they ever made a movie or a TV show, I think that part would be epic, and I would live for it. That was actually my favorite part in this book. And the second favorite part is the ending. The ending, as much as they try to set up as a cliffhanger, it's not really a cliffhanger. It just like opens up the reality of what the next couple books are going to entail. And what I'm trying to say is she reveals who she actually is in a secretive, riddle-like way to the Kingsguard when she's leaving the capital. And then he figures it out himself, and just reading him figuring it out, and his reaction was so satisfying, especially just how she kind of like left it with her being in control, saying, I want you to know that whatever happens, it hasn't changed. It never changed anything for me. Like I still love you. And that was one of those moments where I was like, she's absolutely the heir to the Fae area. Like I can't pronounce names, but she is the real truthful queen that no one thinks exists and would be leading the rebellion when she comes into that title and that name, and then people start to realize who she is, which is awesome, which is epic. And we already know this is going to expand even more. So as much as it's a cliffhanger, it's like one of those good things that opens up the world even further as she goes to her, not a homeland, but a land that actually embellishes Fae, and she can almost figure out and like gain her following there. So I'm really excited to see how that expands. I really am. But we're taking a break to Assassin's Blade, so probably going to get to that in the Heir of Fire, I'm assuming. But really great book. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and on to the next.